Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto was neglected while Naruko and Kushina rose from the shadows? Episode 1. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. To-san, Ka-san, Tsubaki, I did it. Did you see that? Cheered an 8-year-old girl with bright, long red hair with yellow ribbons around the end of her hair, bright, neon violet eyes, and a round face. She wore a red t-shirt, combat pants, and blue ninja sandals. She looked like an exact copy of her mother with the exception of the yellow strands that outlined her hair and the fact that she is younger. That was an amazing Oni-chan, squealed a 7-year-old girl with dark, long blood red hair, bright blue eyes, and wearing a red t-shirt, a black shirt, and blue shoes. She looks similar to her mother and her sister with the exception of her dark red hair. That's great, Narumi-chan, applauded a handsome man with spiky blonde hair with 2 long bangs down the side of his face. He had ocean blue eyes and an angular face. He wore a dark blue, long-sleeve shirt, black sweatpants and stood about a height of 5'8". At the moment, the man, Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage of Konoha and the Yellow Flash of Konoha, was watching his daughter train. This girl, now known as Narumi, is the daughter of both Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Namikaze Kushina. Narumi smiled and continued her training on sensing her chakra and calling it out. She just started training with chakra and her dad was teaching her how to control it. Great job Narumi-chan. You and Tsubaki-chan will be great kunoichi in no time, said a redhead who just came in when she saw her daughter call out her chakra. She stood at a height of 5'4", had bright, red hair, and a heart-shaped angelic face. She wore a hairclip on her hair, wore a red t-shirt and sweatpants. She had a body of a goddess that would make any male or female die of a nosebleed. With long slender arms and legs, and an impressive bust ranging from C-cups to D-cups, this woman is Uzumaki Namikaze Kushina, the red-hot-blooded habanero in Konoha's Red Death. Thanks Ka-san, I can't wait until me and Tsubaki become great kunoichi like you. Narumi replied with a cheesy grin, making both Minato and Kushina smile at their child's energy and attitude. In the distance leaning against a tree, was a little boy who's the same age as Narumi and also a year older than Tsubaki. He has wild, spiky blonde hair, icy, electric blue eyes, and a round face. He stood about the height of 4'8", and was wearing a gray t-shirt and sweatpants. He looked like any normal healthy kid, but one thing different about him was the 3 whisker marks on each side of his face. His name is Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, older twin brother of Narumi and the second oldest child of Minato and Kushina, and Jinchuriki to the soul of Kyuubi and the Imperial Queen Dragon Empress, Arwen. On top of the family's house, was a young, 12-year-old girl, the eldest child of the Uzumaki Namikaze family. She had long, blonde hair with red tips tied in a ponytail, dark, violet-blue eyes, a heart-shaped face, and wearing an orange, pointed hoodie over a red t-shirt, black combat pants, and black boots. Equipped on her are 2 bracers with hidden blades, a sword, a dagger, and a tomahawk strapped to her hip, and a bow with a quiver full of arrows on her back. She is Uzumaki Namikaze Naruhi, a prodigy of a kunoichi who graduated from the academy at the age of 7 and became chunin at 9. She is also an assassin. At the moment, Naruto was frowning at the lovely family scene that was happening at the family's private training area. At the same time, Naruhi heard the cry of an eagle and looked up to find one. Realizing that it was a signal for a new mission with her team, she took off, glancing at Naruto forlornly as she left while paying the rest of her family no mind. Meanwhile, Naruto just shook his head at the family scene and walked away back into the house and into his room where he did some training of his own under the supervision of Kurama-Q aka the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Yes, Naruto knows about Kyuubi's soul sealed inside of him while Narumi, as well as Tsubaki, has the chakra. He entered his room and sealed it by making the ram sign and shouting, Fuin. He then laid down on his bed, remembering what happened a long time ago that made him what he is now. Flashback no jutsu, 3 years ago. Nay to-san, can you teach me how to do some cool ninja stuff? Asked a young, blonde, bouncing around 5-year-old Naruto, hoping his dad would say yes. Nearby, Naruto flinched as a feeling of deja vu crossed over her when she heard Naruto's question. Sorry Naruto, I can't. I have to teach Narumi and Tsubaki, Minato said, making Naruto frown in confusion, the answer he got making him stop bouncing around. Huh, why can't you teach all of us at the same time? Asked a baffled Naruto while ignoring the smug look his twin sister was giving him, and noticing the frown on his older sister's face and the look of confusion on Tsubaki's face. Sorry Naruto, I don't have time to do that. Naruto was going to respond with his father until his mother came in. Naruto, go to your room and don't bother your father. He will teach you when he feels that you are ready, Kushina said in a demanding voice. Naruto, not wanting to argue with his mother, looked at the ground and walked to his room. Why can't I learn how to be a shinobi but Narumi and Tsubaki can? How come they get everything? Naruto wondered out loud to himself. There's a reason why, Naruhi said, coming from behind him, but for now, just train by yourself. That's what I'm doing right now. Naruto turned to his sister, you mean you asked To-san and Ka-san to train you before? He asked. Yep, Naruhi nodded, I was the same age as you, and I've gotten the same answer numerous times. Trust me, you'll get the same answer every time as well. How did you manage to graduate from the academy without Ka-san and To-san teaching you cool ninja stuff? Because I trained in a little something that got me to where I am now. You can join me if you want, little brother. Naruto thought about it and nodded, okay, Nei-san. Naruhi smiled, all right then. We'll start after I return from the Chunin exams in Kumo, she promised. After watching Naruhi go into her room, Naruto went into his room and closed and locked the door so no one could enter. Naruto was as much of a genius and a prodigy as Naruhi, if not more, thanks to his eidetic memory and photographic reflexes. He's smart beyond measure, and has the skills to learn anything really fast, so it didn't take him long enough to figure out that his family favored his younger sisters more than him or Naruhi, especially seeing how they got mostly everything they wanted. He also noticed the villagers treating his younger sisters like royalty. Naruto on the other hand barely got anything he wanted. Even on his birthday he would get 1 or 2 gifts while Narumi would have tons. The villagers also hated him. Sometimes when he would walk around the village alone he could see some of the villagers giving him cold glares. His sisters Narumi and Tsubaki also had a lot of friends, every kid would try to get to know her. Naruto knew that his sisters had the Kyuubi's power in them, and that they were seen as heroines, but he didn't understand why he was so hated by the villagers while Naruhi was mostly ignored. He laid on his bed and closed his eyes so that he could rest. Unknown location. Naruto opened his eyes to find himself in an open field with one side of it having a cloudy blue sky and beautiful flowers while the other side having a clear violet sky and grass. Sugoi. Where am I? In the plane between dimensions, said a heavenly voice from behind Naruto. The blonde jumped and turned to find 3 women with equally enchanting beauty. Who are you 3, and how did I get here? Naruto asked, while getting the feeling making these 3 mad at him would spell the end for him as the 3 ladies kneeled in front of him to get to his level. I am Kami, goddess of light and order. The golden blonde female said, making Naruto's eyes widen, and these are my sisters, Yami, goddess of darkness and chaos, and Shinigami, goddess of life and death. Hi, Yami greeted, flashing a dark smile at Naruto, making him shiver. Nice to meet you, Shinigami said, ruffling Naruto's hair. Nice to meet you all too. It's an honor to meet 3 beautiful goddesses such as yourselves. Naruto said while flashing a foxy smile at them, making Yami and Shinigami blush, but I have to wonder, why you all want to meet me of all people? Because we have an offer for you, Naruto-kun, since you're the only soul who fits our requirements. Kami said, getting straight to business. But before that, Yami now smiled a mischievous smile. There are a couple people we want you to meet. Shinigami said as a swirl of light and darkness encircled the three and they disappeared from the plane between dimensions. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto's vision returned to see that he was in a sewer and in front of him was a giant gate with a seal on it. He didn't know where he was now. He looked around to find that Kami, Yami, and Shinigami were not there with him. "Oi, anyone there?" Naruto called out. What he got was a giant roar from the other side of the gate, which scared the crap out of him. "Who's there?" roared a giant beast, which Naruto could make out was a fox with orange-red fur and 9 tails. Next to the fox is a dark silver dragon a few feet from the cage. It has a big body the size of the fox with a large head with massive teeth, glowing golden eyes, strong legs, massive wings, and a long spiked tail. Naruto just stood there too shocked and scared to say anything. The fox and dragon looked down, saw Naruto and both started to chuckle. "So our jailer finally graces us with his presence," the fox said grinning, showing off 2 rows of pointy teeth. Naruto got out of his shock and looked at the fox, confusion written over his face. "Jailer, and who are you two and where am I now?" Naruto asked. "Yes, you are our jailer. And to answer your question, I am the great and awesome Biju, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. This one right next to me is Arwen, the Imperial Queen Dragon Empress, and we are in your poor excuse of a mindscape," the fox replied, now known as Kyuubi. Naruto's eyes widened in shock, the Kyuubi sealed inside him, along with a dragon. He heard stories of different dragons and the Kyuubi, but didn't really pay attention because he was too small and didn't go to school yet. "I can see the dragon, but you're Kyuubi. I thought you were dead." Naruto stuttered, who was shakily pointing at the giant fox, "and how did you end up sealed inside me?" He added, pointing at Arwen now. Arwen shook her head, "Like my kind, no mortal can kill a Biju, child. As for me, I was flying around and well, curiosity got the better of me and got caught up in the ceiling." Naruto paled. "Are you going to kill me?" he asked fearfully. Kyuubi and Arwen shook their heads and looked at Naruto, chuckling. "Of course we won't, Kit. We saw your memories and I must say that your father, my former jailer, and the villagers are complete idiots," Kyuubi said, making Naruto confused, and slightly turned his head to show it. Kyuubi saw it and continued. "Your father, who did the sealing, sealed my yang chakra in your twin sister and a year later, my yin chakra in your younger sister, believing that they could control my powers, while he sealed my soul into you. Because of this, he is still alive for using the Shinigami to seal me, but seeing that Shinigami-sama didn't seal all of me into one person, your father's personal touch to my soul split me up and sealed me into 3 babies. But in return he probably lost about 1/3 his lifetime, making him die earlier than he's supposed to." Naruto nodded, showing that he understood and taking the information in slowly. "Your father and mother, the latter being Kyuubi's former container, are training your sisters early so that they can control Kyuubi's powers, which is next to impossible without the soul being Kyuubi because of the pure destruction that it contains," Arwen said. Naruto's eyes widened a bit, shocked to learn that his mother once heard Kyuubi within, and then shook his head at how his father made such a stupid mistake. Arwen continued, "Many people died during Kyuubi's brainwashed attack. Many people lost family members, friends, brothers, and sisters. Somehow, it was leaked out to the villagers that you have Kyuubi's soul sealed into you, and hate you for it seeing as it reminds them of the people they lost. They think that you are Kyuubi incarnate and that is why they hate you, thus making your life a living hell." Naruto nodded, understanding what Kyuubi and Arwen were saying, why his mother and father favored Narumi and Tsubaki the most. He looked at the ground sadly, thinking that the villagers were right about him being Kyuubi. Kyuubi sensed this and snarled, "Hey, Naruto, don't you dare think that you are me, because you aren't. You are you and I can't, and will not, influence you in any way, so remember that. And FYI, I am not some bloodthirsty demon who just kills randomly for fun, because truthfully, it's boring picking on the weak." Besides, I have an image of a demon lord to maintain, thank you very much. Then why did you attack Konoha, and how did you get out of my mom? Naruto demanded, making Kyuubi flinch a little and lowered its head in sadness. I was being controlled by a masked man claiming to be Uchiha Madara, the founder of the Uchiha clan. Naruto nodded as he recalled hearing in passing about the man from Naruhi, making him frown. Wouldn't that make him more than 100 years old? Arwen nodded as Kyuubi continued, yes. Either it's because of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan that he's immortal, or he's not Madara at all. While your mother is in labor, the man came and held you and your twin hostage. Your father saved you too, but managed to separate him from your mother, and ripped me from her seal. He then used his blasted Sharingan to trap me in a genjutsu to control me. What she doesn't know yet is that that man's Sharingan has the same energy signature as Namikaze Minato's scarecrow of a student, Arwen thought to herself. Naruto only nodded since this was a lot to take in for a kid his age. At the same time he was thinking. He suddenly came to a conclusion and looked at Kyuubi with determination in his eyes. If that's the case, I'll beat this masked guy for you. Naruto declared, shocking Kyuubi and Arwen. You seriously think you can beat him? Kyuubi asked, reeling from the shock. Yeah, Naruto thumps his chest proudly, you can count on me. Only if you train him. Chided a familiar, heavenly voice. Naruto turned to find Kami, Yami, and Shinigami. Kyuubi and Arwen suddenly paled. Kami-sama. Yami-sama. Shinigami-sama. They squeaked, bowing low. Rise Q and Arwen, and revert to your human forms. Kami ordered. Kyuubi, now called Q, and Arwen nodded as a bright light filled the area. When it died down, two goddess-made-looking humans appeared before them. Q has orange-red hair, blood-red slit eyes, a perfectly heart-shaped, cute face, and two crimson fox ears, making her even more adorable and sexy. Her body was that of a goddess, with a perfect hourglass figure, long slender arms and legs, and an impressive bust ranging from D cup to DD cups. She stood about a height of 5 feet 4 inches, and had slightly tan skin. Above her butt were 9 ghostly crimson tails. Thankfully they're both wearing kimonos, sparing Naruto of his innocence. Arwen-san I already knew, but Kyuubi, you're a girl. Naruto stammered as he pointed at Q, who nodded, amused at her container. Is that a problem? She teased, making Naruto shake his head furiously. So Q, Arwen, you will train him then? Yami asked them. Q nodded, I know, we will. But I won't make it easy of course. I want Naruto-kun to be beyond the level of a caged shinobi so that he can pay that bastard Minato back for using him as a scapegoat just so the villagers can relive their pain. Arwen simply said, same here. Yami smirked, I'll take that as a yes. What I don't understand is why Kushina won't train Naruto-kun and Naruhi. Shinigami said, last I checked, Uzumaki always look after their own no matter what. Being the former jailer of Q, it's completely out of character, even for her. You have a point. Despite her being my former container, even I'm stumped. Q said, sweat dropping. Obviously she follows and listens to Minato like a lost puppy, never doubting him on anything. Yami piped up. Q suddenly remembered something. Now that you mention it, it started after Minato saved Kushina from some Kumo nin when they kidnapped her, resulting in hero worship. All in all, she became the very thing she hates, a loyal fangirl. Arwen concluded, making Kami, Yami and Shinigami scowl at the word, disgusting. A moment of silence later, Naruto spoke up, I don't much about fangirls, but what about this offer you mention? Oh, right. Kami turned to him, looking straight at the blonde, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, as our child of prophecy, you are destined for great things here in this plane. Because of that you'll be able to bring peace not only to the elemental countries, but to the world, and other worlds as well. Due to your blood, you have a perfect soul with the right amount of light and darkness within it, Shinigami added. With that said, will you become our avatar? Yami offered, you are the child of prophecy me and my sisters foretold after all. Naruto was floored. He was given an offer by the three most powerful goddesses to become their avatar, their harbinger if you will. He thought about it and realized that not only will he have the power to protect his precious people, but stick it to that self-righteous blonde prick of a Hokage. The decision was pretty obvious at this point. I accept, he said, under one condition. Name it. The goddesses, the vixen, and the dragon lady said at once. Naruto stood for a moment before bowing low to the ground. Please don't betray me. Kami, Yami, Shinigami, Hugh, and Arwen all blinked before walking over to Naruto and pulled him into a hug. Of course not. We would never do that with Naruto-kun. Don't ever doubt us, Kami said, smiling. Naruto hugged back. Thank you, Kami-chan, Yami-chan, Shini-chan, Hugh-chan. Arwen-chan. The goddesses, Chakra Demon, and Dragon Lady blushed at the new nicknames their soon-to-be avatar gave them as they broke apart. Then Naruto of the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans becomes our avatar. The three goddesses spoke in one voice. The area became flooded with power as the three goddesses poured part of their power into Naruto. Tattoos started to form on Naruto, with the kanji for angel appearing on his left shoulder, the kanji for devil appearing on his right shoulder, and the kanji for reaper appearing on his upper back. We will be seeing a lot more of each other. Make us proud, Naruto-kun. Kami said as she and her sisters faded from his mindscape, which started to grow faint. What happened? Naruto asked, confused. You're waking up from your nap. Arwen said, we'll open a link where we can talk without you always going into your mindscape. Naruto nodded, relieved to know he didn't have to be asleep or knocked out to talk to his new senseis. Oh, before I forget, can you change your mindscape to something more comfortable? The sewers can get boring real quick, Hugh added. Sure thing Kyuubi-chan, I'll make you a fox den. And for you Arwen-chan, a dragon cave. Arigato, Naruto-kun. They said, smiling. With that Naruto faded out of his mindscape and woke up still in the same position on the bed. Flashback Kai. Present day. Throughout the years Naruto has been training very hard. Every day, he would train himself until he was exhausted and couldn't move. He would usually train in his room or in a secret training area where his so-called parents wouldn't catch him. On occasion he would train with Naruhi, who recently became a newly minted chunin, and would take the time to teach Naruto what she learned in the field whenever she could. Since he was a kid he couldn't lift weights yet or else he would damage his muscles, so Q gave him a routine he would have to do every day, proving herself to be a psychotic teacher. He mostly worked on his endurance and stamina, but would also build his muscular strength with body weight exercises such as push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, body squats and crunches. Arwen would also have him work on his chakra control since he had an extremely large chakra reserve, currently unlocked at high genin to low chunin at the moment. His routine every day would be 100 push-ups, followed by 100 crunches. He would perform this in several sets, usually taking about an hour or so to complete. Then he would take a short break and do 100 pull-ups and 100 squats in several more sets, which he kept at for about another hour. After this, he would run around the village 3 times, which took about 2 hours, and spend 3 hours doing chakra control. He would do this every day and wouldn't cheat or take any shortcuts. When he first began his training, he started doing one set of 20 of each, then as time passed by and he became stronger, he started to do more and more. Eventually he came to where he is now, doing several sets of 100 repetitions of each exercise. Eventually, Naruhi got him interested in seals and started him off on Fuinjutsu. Naruto guessed that it ran in the family since his father and mother were seal masters themselves. He read how to do simple seals like a storage seal. He figured out how to make a simple storage seal from scratch, but during his study he came across several seals that caught his attention. It was the gravity seal and resistance seal, seals which applied extra gravity and resistance on the user, making it harder for them to move, but when released they would become faster and stronger. Naruto knew the seals would help him greatly with his training. So with the help of a hesitant Naruhi, he figured out how it worked and applied it to himself. Also during his training, Arwen told him to go to the library to read some books and scrolls on jutsu he may find. He did as he was told, using Arwen's residual chakra to copy the whole library, but didn't find much. So Q told him to sneak into the Hokage's library and find the forbidden scroll of sealing. Naruto did what he was told, and surprisingly, he actually got in. Q then instructed him to find a jutsu called Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique, and for him to know the hand seals and how to do it. It didn't take him long to find it since it was the first thing on the list. After several minutes of reading and rereading, he learned the ins and outs of the jutsu, and put the scroll back where he found it after copying it too, and went back to practice what he learned. When he mastered the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Q reminded him of the secret of the technique, that when a clone dispels after it learns or does something, it sends all its information and experience to the real person. Naruto was ecstatic, as he realized could even do a year worth of training in little more in a day, making him even stronger. Afterwards, Q and Arwen proceeded to start teaching Naruto their taijutsu styles. With many good things, there are also bad situations. As time passed by, the villagers at first started with cold glares, but they progressed from glaring and muttering at him into physically assaulting him and beating him up. Once every 2 weeks or so there would be a crowd that would corner Naruto and beat him senseless. They didn't do anything crazy since he was the son of their beloved Yondaime, but they would show him his place, as they liked to call it. Naruto would fight back, of course, but sometimes the numbers game would be too much for him. Some of the children around Naruto's age wouldn't hang out or talk to him. Instead they would all flaunt over Narumi and Tsubaki and give him cold glares, and his own younger sister wouldn't do anything to stop it. Some of the people who tried to be his friend only did it so that they could get close to Narumi and Tsubaki. During the academy he would be ignored, but Naruto didn't really mind since he was pretty much alone from the start with the exception of Q and Arwen. Though there were several people that befriended him, the Hyuga twins, Hinata and Hisana, and their little sister Hanabi, the Yamanaka twins, Ino and Kyoko, the Haruno twins, Sakura and Sakuya, Anagami Akira, and Higurashi Tenten. Also among his true friends were two of Kushina's former students, Yuhi Kurenai and Mitarashi Anko, Inuzuka Hana, Akira's older sister and also Kushina's former student, Kato Shizune, student of the Slug Sannin, Naruhi's teammates Azuki Yugao and Itachi Uchiha, Uchiha Satsuki, Uchiha Makoto, Shiranui Gemma, Gekko Hayate, Morino Ibiki, and the Ichiraku family from the ramen stand. A.N. Hisana and Kyoko are the alternate Hinata and Ino from Road to Ninja, personality-wise. Kurenai, Anko, Yugao, Hana, Shizune, Gemna, and Hayate helped Naruto one time when the villagers beat him, while Ibiki went on to teach those villagers a lesson during a torture session. After that they became friends, but at times he would stay a safe distance away from them so that the villagers wouldn't try to target them, too. But the others would have none of it and proceeded to hang around Naruto whenever possible. Itachi had found him during one of his training exercises and watched in silence. He was impressed by Naruto's determination and hard work and eventually talked to Naruto. He asked why Naruto was training by himself and where his family was. Naruto's answer was, "I am nothing to them, only extra baggage." But that'll change soon. Itachi was shocked, but understood what he meant. He often saw Naruto along with Naruhi walking behind their parents with bored, expressionless faces, just talking to each other and acting as though they weren't with their family. After that, Itachi often visited Naruto as much as he could and helped Naruhi with Naruto's training, as he saw much of himself in Naruto, particularly with regards to his intellect and talent. The rest of Naruto's friends, who were Naruhi's age or older, eventually caught wind of it, and would contribute to Naruto's training. Uchiha Makoto, the matriarch of the Uchiha clan, the mother of Itachi and Satsuki, and the Jonin sensei of Naruhi, Itachi, and Yugao, found Naruto walking alone around Konoha one day, banged up and bruised. She asked why he wasn't with his parents and why he was looking rough. He gave them the same answer as Itachi while keeping silent about the recent beatdown he fended off. Makoto was furious pissed the hell off and decided to march over to the Namikaze estate and give her two friends a piece of her mind. Naruto tried to stop her saying it wouldn't matter, but she didn't listen to him and instead dragged him with her to the Namikaze estate. He still remembered what happened that time. Flashback no jutsu, 1.5 years ago. Uchiha Makoto barged through the gates of the Namikaze estate, dragging a blonde-haired boy with her. Moments later, Kushina and Minato came into the front of the door to find Makoto holding their son. Naruhi trailed far behind them, her widening at the state her brother was in. "Makoto, why are you here? And why is my son with you?" Kushina asked, confused, since she thought that Naruto was in his room. "What, I can't visit my best friend or something? I'm here because I found your son walking around Konoha alone, not to mention looking like he just got out of the Third Great Shinobi War." Makoto replied loudly. "Really? Oh, thanks Makoto-chan for finding my son. We'll take it from here," Minato said while telling Naruto to go to his room, which he did, but stayed back behind Naruhi so he could hear the rest of the conversation. "Did you even know that your son was outside and hurt?" Makoto asked, trying to figure out her friends. "No, but I thank you again for finding him," Kushina replied. Makoto narrowed her eyes and in the corner of her eyes, she noticed two redheads that were training in the family training ground. This got a question that she wanted to ask them. Why are Narumi and Tsubaki training to be kunoichi early while Naruto is sent to his room? "We decided to train them early," Kushina explained. "They both have the Kyuubi's power sealed into them and they have to know how to control it." "Are you serious? What about Naruto and Naruhi?" Makoto's tone got colder and colder by the second, which was starting to scare Kushina and Minato. "I'm sorry, but those two are none of your business," Minato said, "but we'll train Naruto and Naruhi in our arts when they're ready." "What, don't they even know that Naruhi's a chunin?" Makoto stood there, glaring bloody cold kunais at the two. "I understand. Sorry for asking a stupid question, Namikaze-san." Minato and Kushina flinched at the sudden change in their friend, but just tossed it aside thinking it wasn't anything serious, as Makoto whipped around and walked away, too pissed off to say goodbye. What the hell is going on with her? She wondered. Kushina is now what she hates, a fangirl. It can't be his doing, can it? Flashback present day. After the incident, Makoto helped Naruto and Naruhi the best as she could. She would do anything from cooking them lunch to giving Naruto advice on his training since she herself is a jonin. She also allowed Naruto join in on her squad's training. She also tried befriending him with her youngest twin son and daughter, Sasuke and Satsuki. Sasuke would say things like, "That kid isn't worth my time," or, "The Uchiha are the best," to Naruto and Satsuki's annoyance. But at least Itachi befriended him, which made Makoto happy though she wished he had a friend his age, though Naruto didn't mind. His relations with his family however, became much worse. As his parents trained Narumi and Tsubaki in their family styles and jutsu, and spoiled them rotten on top of it, Naruto could only watch in the background, always hoping for attention. He would suggest the family go the movie, while Narumi would suggest they go and eat ramen, and to Naruto's disappointment they always chose whatever Narumi would suggest. After a while of watching and hoping, he completely gave up like Naruhi did and trained even harder to show them that he didn't need them. He stayed in his room, not bothering to go out and talk with his family. Only time he saw them during the day would be dinner, but even then he would stay silent, only sitting next to Naruhi at the opposite end of the dinner table and talking quietly with her. The two of them would just finish their food as fast as they could, wash their own dishes and go back to their rooms and train or just spend time talking with each other in either his room or hers. When the family went on walks around the village, they would stay even farther back from the rest of the family than before, while Narumi would usually lead the family to their destination. He avoided attention as much as possible by being quiet or staying in corners where no one would see him. During parties he would only be there for an hour or so until he got tired and left. Sometimes Narumi and Tsubaki would ask him and Naruhi to play with them, but they would turn them down, saying that they were busy. In his free time, Naruto would usually read books of various kinds: fiction, jutsu, seals or anything ninja-related, even some history and philosophy. He would also write, draw, and tend to his own garden on the balcony connected to his room. When his parents weren't around, he would work on improving his fuinjutsu, aiming to surpass his parents since they were seal masters. Naruto got up and started to do his daily workout. He took a short break, walked to his desk and took out a very detailed layout of the village, complete with patrol routes and times, entry and exit points, and some routes of his own that he had scribbled on for his own purposes. Do you think this escape plan will work, Q-chan? Don't know until we try, but I'm pretty sure it will, Q replied as she yawned. If all goes well, it'll show everyone the type of man your father truly is. Too bad my mother doesn't see it that way, Naruto muttered, remembering the falling out Kurenai, Anko, Hana, and Yugao had with Kushina the day after she and Makoto had their falling out. Since his first meeting with Q and Arwen, he would talk to them as often as he could. To him, the vixen was his mother, while Arwen was like an aunt. He would tell them about the goings-on in his life, and how he thought and felt about things. In return, Q and Arwen would teach him anything from jutsu to reading and writing. They both also contributed to his training. I guess it's back to training, Naruto told himself, putting the paper back into his desk and resuming his training routine. After Naruto finished, he took a quick shower and changed into his nightgown before going into his bathroom to brush his teeth. After he was done, he climbed into his bed and took out a calendar book. Soon, it will be me and Narumi's birthday, Naruto muttered, looking at the date that said October 10th on his calendar, and the day that I'll know, we will leave Konoha, he resolved, looking over to his bed to see a medium-sized yellow-blonde furred fox sleeping there. Yuki-chan, Hokage's office, the next day. Namikaze Minato was doing paperwork, something he hated to do as Hokage. He was currently looking at a petition to release the civilians that were in jail for hurting his son Naruto. He sighed, remembering the time after the Kyuubi attack and when he announced that Narumi had the Kyuubi power and Naruto had the soul. Some of the villagers asked that Naruto be watched, hurt, or even killed before the Kyuubi could control Naruto. As a father, he knew that he shouldn't let them go, but he was the Hokage first. He was not just any Hokage, but the best Hokage ever to lead Konoha so far. As Hokage, he knew that the village came first, and family came much, much later. He knew the pain of the village after the Kyuubi attack, and with Naruto having the soul of the Kyuubi, he knew that the village would target him. He knew it was bad, but the village needed a scapegoat, and despite how young Naruto was, he was the only person to fit the bill. The best he felt that he could do was to reduce what they did to him. He signed the paper that released the villagers from their prison. He just hoped that Naruto would forgive him, and that his wife and daughters wouldn't ever find out about what he allowed the village to do to Naruto. It was for the sake of Project K after all. He was about to go through more paperwork until he felt a presence behind him. Jiraiya-sensei, what are you doing here? Minato asked while he quickly approved the request to release the prisoners. It seems like I could never hide from you, my former student, Jiraiya said as he jumped through the window. I ask you again, why are you here? I assumed you were peeping on women like you always do. Actually, the toads summoned me and told me about a prophecy. Prophecy from the toads? Minato asked, shocked. Jiraiya nodded in confirmation. What was it about? It said that the chosen one is the child born from two great shinobi, and holds many great powers along with the marks of Kami, Yami, and Shinigami. I expect that the chosen one would be Narumi since she is your and Kushina's child and has the power of the Kyuubi within herself. Minato nodded slowly, then realization came to him and he smiled. So my daughter is the chosen one? A hopeful Minato asked. With this news, Project K will be. I think so, since she seems to fit all the requirements, Jiraiya replied, seeing how happy his student is. Since it's Narumi's birthday tomorrow, I was wondering if you would let her sign the Toad contract. He asked Minato, his smile growing wider as Minato nodded. Since that's done, I guess I'll continue my research. See you later, Minato, Jiraiya exclaimed before disappearing using Shunshin. Minato sighed and looked at his loads of paperwork with a frown. He still couldn't figure out a way to beat every Kage's enemy. After working for a while, Minato stopped and started to think about his family and how far they have grown as a family. How happy they were, he, Kushina, Narumi, Tsubaki, Naruto, and Naruhi. Naruto, Naruhi. He frowned when he thought about the two of them. After refusing to teach Naruhi and Naruto, they pretty much excluded themselves from the family, doing their own things. Minato still remembered the times Naruto and Naruhi would ask to go somewhere as a family, but he refused their ideas for Narumi and Tsubaki's, picking wherever they wanted to go. As time went by, their requests became less frequent until eventually they stopped asking for anything. They even showed their faces less around the house, always staying in their rooms, and during dinner time they would sit off at the opposite end of the table, silently just talking to each other while they ate and acting as if the rest of them weren't there. The only time he really saw Naruto was during dinner time and while Naruto and Narumi were walking to the academy. He saw Naruhi even less frequently than that. Where does Naruhi go and what does she do with her time? I can't really remember anything about her since the time I registered her for the academy, Minato thought to himself with no small amount of shame. Minato shook his head, thinking about what he did to Naruto and Naruhi. Thinking of this had brought him to a decision. He was going to make it up to them somehow in order to appease them. Starting tomorrow after Naruto and Narumi's birthday, he was going to start Naruto and Naruhi's training in their family's styles. He was going to bring them back into the family, and hopefully make them see things his way. Unfortunately, he didn't know his son and daughter as well as he thought he did, and he would learn that the hard way very, very shortly. Uzumaki Namikaze Kushina at the moment was making dinner for the family. She too felt that Naruto and Naruhi weren't part of the family. Every time the kids would come home, those two would go into their separate rooms and stay there until dinner. At dinner they would whisper to each other and not even spare a glance while sitting at the complete opposite end of the dining room table away from the others. When they walked around Konoha, they would stay several yards back and just keep to themselves. She did notice that aside from Naruhi's disappearing acts, Naruto always read books, which was good, but he sometimes read too much and wouldn't go out and play with most of the children his age. She started to wonder if Naruto had any friends at all. She regretted not training Naruto and Naruhi at the same time as Narumi and Tsubaki, but she believed her husband Minato when he said that Narumi and Tsubaki needed the extra attention due to them having the Kyuubi's power. Being a former Jinchuriki herself, she knew how hard it was to control the Kyuubi's power. Kushina was worried. She didn't want Naruto and Naruhi to isolate themselves from the family. She knew that something had to be done, and the moment they walked through that door, she was going to make it up to them. She was going to make her family whole again no matter what it took. Smiling at the thought, she continued to cook dinner for the family, and especially for Naruto and Naruhi to enjoy. Unfortunately for her, she would very shortly learn just how far gone her relationship with her two oldest children really was. Konoha streets. Naruto Oni-chan, where are you? Narumi called out, running around Konoha with Tsubaki on her tail, trying to look for their brother. After class was done, the redheads wanted to walk home with Naruto and Naruhi, but to their disappointment, they disappeared after the last class for the day. Naruto Oni-chan, Tsubaki shouted, hoping Naruto would appear this time. When there was nothing in return, she and Narumi started to walk home. Truthfully, Narumi loved Naruto a lot, maybe more than she should, and was sure Tsubaki felt the same way. Lately, she would always try to play with him, but Naruto always turned her down saying he was busy. She wanted Naruto to feel like a part of the family, not an outcast. During the academy she noticed that he would always sleep in class. She also noticed that Naruto barely talked to anyone in his class, nor would the classmates try to talk to him, since they were too busy trying to get her attention. He did make some small talk with some of the clan heirs from time to time, but nothing beyond that. Narumi tried to talk to him during school, but every time she tried she and her sister would be bombarded by their cursed fan club. When they would finally get rid of them, Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Narumi started to remember the past and felt sick at herself for being such a spoiled little brat. She remembered the time when she was little. After her dad told Naruto that he had to train her and Tsubaki first, she started to tease Naruto about it. She would say childish things like the family loved them more, or show Naruto what she learned to make fun of him. Tsubaki herself never did those things, and would occasionally stop Narumi from showing off. When Naruto would suggest they go somewhere, Narumi would always try to one-up him by suggesting they go to another place, knowing that every time their parents would choose her suggestion over his. There were times when Tsubaki suggested they go to the places Naruto would suggest, but sometimes Narumi would overrule him. Remembering these things made Narumi just wanted to go back in time and punt her younger, spoiled self into an active volcano. Preferably Mt. Fuji. Narumi and Tsubaki walked home alone, another day without Naruto, or even Naruhi. While they walked home, she remembered that tomorrow was her and Naruto's birthday. She smiled and thought of a plan to get her now beloved brother back along with her older sister. By the time she got home, she finished thinking of a plan and was going to start it the moment Naruto and Naruhi walked through the front door. Uzumaki Namikaze Estate. Kushina was still cooking dinner, making their family's favorite food, ramen, just as she heard the door open. She turned to see her husband Minato at the door taking off his shinobi shoes. "Got off work early, dear?" Kushina asked. Minato looked up to see his wife in an apron cooking dinner, making him smile and nodded, "Yup." As he walked into the kitchen, he gave his wife a kiss on the cheek, and then saw that she had concern written on her face. "What's wrong, Kushina-chan?" he asked. "It's Naruhi and Naruto. I feel like they're not part of the family anymore," Kushina said sadly, and she started to tear up, prompting Minato to hug and try to cheer her up. "It's okay, Kushina-chan. Starting tomorrow after the birthday party, I will be starting Naruto and Naruhi's training," he said, trying to relax his wife. Kushina looked at Minato with a smile on her face. "I bet they'll love that." "I know they will." Just then the door swung open and Narumi and Tsubaki came barging in with determination in their eyes. "Ka-san, make lots of ramen today," Narumi yelled as she and Tsubaki went to their rooms to change out of their kunoichi outfits. Kushina and Minato were a little surprised by their daughter's reaction, but they did get that from their mother. Wonder what's gotten her all excited? Minato wondered. Maybe she feels the same way we do about Naruhi and Naruto, Kushina guessed, noticing that Naruto and Naruhi weren't with Narumi and Tsubaki, nor were they home yet. "Hey, speaking of them, where are they?" she asked, wondering where her oldest children could be at the moment. When Minato heard this, he cringed a little knowing where at least Naruto could be, but was caught by Kushina, looking at him in confusion. As if on cue, Naruhi came through the door, carrying Naruto on her back, the latter with several bruises and cut marks on his arm and legs, muttering, "Ow," repeatedly, with him and Naruhi not noticing their parents yet. Stupid villagers can't tell the difference between a jailer and the tenant. They think I'm going to destroy them since I have Q-chan's soul. I don't even have the power, so how can I destroy the village? Plus, I'm not even a girl, not that they know that she's female. Naruto grumbled quietly to himself as Naruhi immediately started to climb the stairs to get Naruto to his room as quickly as possible. Man, if I haven't brought those stink bombs with me, I would have been overrun. This is what I get for overdoing the training. I did tell you to ease up on the training, baka. You're just lucky they had such a foul stench so that I could smell them from far away, Naruhi said, but those damn villagers have attacked you for the last time. Next time, I'll pump them full of poison, she muttered to herself. Naruto sniggered at that. You do that then. No doubt Yuki-chan's worried sick about me. Kushina looked in shock to see her son was injured, while Minato looked away. Kushina quickly ran to Naruhi and Naruto with Minato following shortly behind her. Naruto. Naruhi. She called out. Naruhi turned around to see both Kushina and Minato looking at her and Naruto. Yes, was Naruhi's curt reply. What happened to your brother? A worried Kushina asked, looking at his damaged form. Naruhi was about to reply when Naruto cut across her. Oh this, I was climbing a tree, but slipped and fell down. I'm fine really. Naruhi frowned at her brother. She was going to tell her parents what really happened, but now that she thought about it, it wouldn't do any good. Kushina didn't want to leave Naruto alone, but guessed that Naruto is fine as he said, so she let him go. Well, okay then, Kushina responded, though her doubt about Naruto's answer could be heard in her tone. If you're okay, then clean up and get changed for dinner. Naruto and Naruhi nodded, the latter carrying him back to his room. When they got in, Naruhi set to work healing Naruto, as a yellow fox that was sitting on Naruto's desk bounded off it and leapt into Naruto's lap. Hey there Yukikaze-chan, Naruhi greeted, with the little fox yipping in return, before turning to Naruto and barking at him. Hey Yuki-chan, no, I'm fine, okay, they got the jump on me, but Nei-chan saved me, take you with me next time. I don't want you to get hurt, even so, okay, fine. Naruhi giggled at the exchange between the little fox and her master. She remembered the time when she witnessed Naruto save Yukikaze during a morning run in the forest when he was 6 years old. Her leg was caught in a stray trap and the noise attracted some villagers who, of course, hated foxes. Yukikaze would have been made a fur coat if it hadn't been for the quick thinking of Naruto, who used a smoke bomb made for him by Naruhi to disorient the crowd. He sneaked his way to the snare and quickly dismantled it, freeing the little fox. As Naruto took her to see Hana, it left Naruhi to give the fox-hating villagers a little taste of hell. Yukikaze had to stay with Hana for a week to recuperate and heal her injured leg, with Naruto visiting every day. When Yukikaze was released, she stuck to Naruto like white on rice, forever grateful to her blonde savior, and pledged her loyalty to him. Figuring that Yukikaze was going to stay with Naruto forever, Naruhi put a seal behind their ears so that they could communicate telepathically, thus learning that the little fox's name was Yukikaze, her nickname was Yuki, and that she was a girl. I guess Yukikaze-chan's cured of that cold now? Naruhi asked as she finished healing Naruto. Yukikaze barked, nodding rapidly. She's not letting me out of her sight anymore after seeing my injuries, sick or not, Naruto grumbled. Naruhi laughed. I swear, you two would make the perfect couple, if she doesn't mind sharing you with other girls. At Naruto's confused look, she giggled, you'll understand when you're older. Dinner came and Naruto and Naruhi came out of their rooms, both wearing the same clothes, a black t-shirt and black track pants. Yukikaze posed as a stuffed animal that's sitting on Naruto's shoulder. When they got to their spots on the table, they felt their family's eyes on them. Naruto looked up and to his surprise his family was waiting for him and Naruhi, with smiles on their faces. Even Narumi and Tsubaki seemed to be waiting for him. Usually Narumi would be attacking the food by now, especially when it was ramen being served. What in the bluest of blue hell is going on here? Naruto wondered to himself. Maybe they finally noticed they have a son and a daughter, Arwen guessed sarcastically. She and Q seeing what Naruto sees, and in Narumi and Tsubaki's case, a brother and a sister. We'll see about that. Naruto looked over to Naruhi, who was sporting the same confused look, and shrugged it off as she started attacking her ramen. Shaking his head, Naruto took out his chopsticks to eat his ramen. When he ate the first bite, the family started eating their ramen. Okay, what the hell? Just what the hell is going on to make our family change so suddenly? Naruto thought to himself as his surprise became suspicious. So Naruto, how was your day? Kushina asked, wanting to know about her son's day. Naruto was surprised that his family actually talked to him. He was slightly happy that he was finally getting attention, but that was easily washed away with anger. You gotta be fucking kidding me. So now they notice me after all this time? Ha, whatever, this changes jack shit. Naruto thought savagely as Yukikaze ate a few noodles off Naruto's chopsticks discreetly. Good answer, Naruto-kun. They don't deserve your forgiveness. Not yet. Naruto inwardly nodded to Q, while Arwen sighed, regretting not stopping Naruto from learning swear words and their meanings from the vixen. No matter, as long as Naruto gave them a piece of his mind, she was fine with his language for now. Fine. Nothing special happened, Naruto shrugged, quickly going back to finishing his food. Kushina frowned at the quick answer she received, then turned to Naruhi. What about you, Naruhi? Naruhi blinked at her mother. Me and my team just learned a few attack formations for search and rescue. That's all, she answered, while resisting the urge to slug her mother in the face for finally talking to her after all this time. Then Narumi jumped into the conversation. So Oni-chan, what did you think of today's lesson? She asked. Boring, Naruto replied in a bored tone, while he and Naruhi quickly finished their ramen. How was it boring? Kushina asked. The lesson should be important enough for you to learn. I meant boring because I already know all about the theory of chakra they're teaching at the academy, Naruto explained quickly. Minato and Kushina's eyes widened. They didn't know that Naruto already knew such an advanced subject. While Kushina felt proud of Naruto's knowledge, Minato felt nervous about it. Well, where did you get that cute fox doll? Tsubaki asked, changing the subject. Naruto shrugged. Bought it when I was a kid with some spare change I found, he replied, not planning to reveal Yukikaze's true identity. Narumi scowled at her twin brother's quick answer. It felt like neither Naruto nor Naruhi wanted to talk to them. As Naruto finished his ramen, drinking the rest of the broth along with Yukikaze, he put his bowl into the sink and started washing it with Naruhi joining a few seconds later. It's okay, you two don't have to wash your bowls. I can wash them for you, Kushina offered. Naruto and Naruhi ignored what she said, and started to wash their bowls at a fast pace. It's okay, we're fine, we wouldn't want you to waste your time on us anyway. We can take care of ourselves, Naruto said, not bothering to spare his mother a glance. Besides, we've been doing it for years, Naruhi informed her, so why stop now? Kushina was shocked at her older children's replies. Tears started to form in her eyes. Her son and daughter thought that they were nothing in the family. Wiping the tears of her eyes, she again resolved to change their outlook, no matter what it took. By the time Naruto and Naruhi finished washing their dishes, the family had just finished their ramen. Since they loved ramen, they ate it pretty fast. Naruto and Naruhi were quickly heading back to their rooms until their father called them back and told them to head to the living room for a meeting. Ah crap, Naruto groaned inwardly, but went to the living room anyway and sat on the couch until his family came. When they finished washing the dishes and everything, they joined Naruto and Naruhi in the living room. Narumi sat next to Naruto and Tsubaki sat next to Naruhi, while Minato and Kushina sat across from them. Now Naruto, Naruhi, I have news for you that will make you two happy, Minato announced. Naruhi just blinked while Naruto raised an eyebrow at him, as Minato continued, I'm happy to say that starting tomorrow, you'll be starting your training in the family arts. He said proudly. Does that mean Oni-chan and Oni-chan will be practicing with us? Asked a hopeful Tsubaki. Minato nodded and Narumi's face glowed while Tsubaki bounced around the room with happiness. Minato then looked at Naruto and Naruhi and was surprised at their reactions. Naruhi's eyebrows were twitching as tick marks showed all over her head while Naruto glared at their parents with the same dead cold eyes he always had. Neither showed a single sign that they were attempting to smile. Kushina was shocked as well. She thought that this plan would work. She was sure it was going to work. Narumi and Tsubaki saw the looks on both their parents' faces and wondered what was going on. They turned to look at their older brother and sister, and like her parents they too were shocked. Oni-chan, Oni-chan, aren't you happy? Now we can train together. Narumi said with Tsubaki nodding her head. Should we be? Naruto replied shrugging, looking at his two younger sisters with a bored expression. I'll have to side with Naruto here on that, Naruhi agreed, looking at her parents with annoyed eyes. Mainly her father. Why not, you too? Don't you want to know mine and your father's fighting styles? Kushina asked, hoping to see signs that Naruto and Naruhi were reconsidering their answers. Nah, I'm good. Like my Nei-san, I lost interest after you guys refused to teach me when I asked around 20 times or more, Naruto told them with Naruhi nodding. Minato and Kushina drew confused looks. Both the Namikaze and Uzumaki fighting styles were strong. They didn't understand why their eldest children wouldn't want to learn their family's techniques and be extremely strong like them. Well, Kushina more so than Minato. They broke out of their thoughts when Naruto spoke again. I don't need training from either of you. Since you originally refused, why start now? I'll wait until I become a genin and have a competent sensei that will train me to become a shinobi. Even then, I will not train or learn any of your styles, at least not from you people, Naruto said. And thanks for the offer though, but you're way past the expiration date. I myself managed to graduate from the academy and become chunin early without your teachings, so I have to say I'm doing well without your fighting styles. Minato-san, Kushina-san, Naruhi added, wearing a sinful smile. Now if you don't mind, we're going to sleep. Good night Minato-san, Kushina-san, Narumi-san, and Tsubaki-san. Naruto said, giving a mock bow. He and Naruhi got up and left the room, turning their backs on their shocked parents and sisters. What do we do now? Kushina asked, tears in her eyes. After hearing what Naruto and Naruhi said, she couldn't take it anymore and started to cry. I don't know anymore, maybe this was a little too much for them to take in for the day. Just give them a little time, I'm sure they'll warm up to the idea, Minato replied, trying to calm his wife. Truthfully he didn't know, since both kids sounded really serious. He could only hope that he was wrong. For the sake of the plan, after all. Why Oni-chan, Oni-chan? Why? Narumi cried, upset. Narumi and Tsubaki were really hoping that their sibling would agree to train, so that they could be together and they would have more time to talk and be with him. With their refusals, their hearts broke and they started to cry. Naruto's room. Naruto slammed the door behind him and checked his things that he'd gotten ready for tomorrow. He was still in a foul mood from the conversation he had with his family. Why those? They notice me now and think that I would forgive them because I get to learn their fighting styles. Ha! As if. He mentally yelled. Calm down Naruto-kun, it doesn't matter. You just need some sleep so that you can focus on the plan tomorrow, Q said, trying to calm Naruto down with Arwen and Yukikaze agreeing. What Naruto didn't know is that Q and Arwen liked Naruto, and it hurt them both to see him angry, especially with what happened today. Q and Arwen themselves were angry with his parents for noticing their son now, after almost 9 years. Naruto needed to rest so that he could focus on his escape plan for tomorrow. I understand Q-chan, but I'd rather head to my mindscape to make sure I'm ready, Naruto said as he finished packing his things and got to bed. Can I join you, Naruto-sama? Yukikaze asked, as she laid down to rest next to Naruto's pillow. Sure, Yuki-chan. Tomorrow is when we finally leave this dump called Konoha, and the last thing we need is their so-called top ninjas trying to stop us. Naruhi's room. Like her brother, Naruhi slammed the door behind her and paced her room, fuming. That man, her father, had a lot of nerve offering what he did. She was not going to dance to his tune, especially after what she found out when she snuck into his office to learn the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu from the Forbidden Scroll of Sealing. It all started when she was 5 years old herself. She was in the same position as her little brother Naruto when she asked her parents for training. When they denied her, she kept badgering them for about half a year until she realized that they wouldn't budge on their decision. So she took matters into her own hands. Uzumaki Mito brought the scrolls into Konoha when she married the Shidime Hokage, Senju Hashirama. They were collecting dust in the Uzumaki library until Naruhi got them out. During the raid, She learned from several notes that the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu is useful for training purposes, since the total amount of experience the user gains is multiplied by the total number of clones being used to train. And since Naruhi was born with an abnormal amount of chakra like her siblings thanks to the Uzumaki bloodline, the jutsu was perfect for her. So while her father was in a council meeting, she snuck into his office and learned the technique from the forbidden scroll of sealing. During the process, however, she noticed a small booklet titled, Project K, on the Hokage's desk. Curious, she flipped through it, and while she couldn't understand most of it, it involved her family and mainly her little sisters. Despite having a photographic memory herself, she used the remaining time her father was in the meeting to copy most of the key points of the book before leaving. As the year went by, her intelligence increased, and the more she read through the key points of Project K, the more she became enraged. She couldn't believe what her father was planning for her two little sisters' future, and when it got to the point when she fully understood the plan, she snapped during a mission and single-handedly wiped out a platoon of bandits who were selling young women and children. And the worst part about it was that she couldn't tell anyone, not even her own mother, due to the fact she didn't know if she was in on it or not. But now, in the present time, it is all going to change. The truth was going to come out on her sibling's birthday. And she would see if Kushina knew or not. If she knew, then fuck her. She'll be just another puppy, a stupid, sickening fangirl. If she didn't know, then it was all her father. She hated the bastard. He was the reason the family, except Naruto, were not there for her when she graduated from the academy. With that in mind, Naruhi disarmed herself of her weapons and threw herself in bed. There was a time when I hated my little brother and sisters, because I thought they took the love and attention my parents had for me, Naruhi mused, but when I learned about Project K, it wasn't the case. My hatred was misplaced. And now, that hatred is reserved for that man. I will protect my little brother and sisters. As for my mother, we'll see. Naruto's Mindscape. Look guys, I know we're all in agreement with leaving Konoha, but are you sure we should leave your mother and sisters? Especially after what Naruhi-chan learned from the Hokage's office. Arwen asked, worried. Naruhi-ne-chan says she'll handle it, Naruto replied as he focused on the image of his usual personal training grounds. Oh, right, Arwen mumbled, but what about that Hyuga incident? What if Kumo decides to go after Hinata, Hisana, and Hanabi again, even after Naruto saved them? It's all right, Arwen-sama, Yukikaze said, calming her down, Naruhi-chan will still be here in Konoha. Besides, she has a plan of her own. A flash of light later, the training grounds appeared. They were similar to the usual training grounds found in Konoha, but they were larger. It was this place that had allowed Naruto to become so strong. He would come here to learn, make perfect techniques. An hour in the real world would equal a day in his mindscape. Combining that advantage with upwards of 100 Kage Bunshins, and learning anything quickly became inevitable. Before Naruto proceeded to train in advanced techniques, he broke into his family's jutsu vault and copied the library into his own inner library with Arwen's chakra. The first thing he had learned was the Uzumaki clan's dojutsu, the Rinnegan. Originally used by the legendary Raikudo Sennin, it allowed him to use all 5 elemental natures, along with the 6 paths techniques. He also discovered chakra chains, which were used exclusively by the Uzumaki clan. They were so strong that they could hold down the most powerful of tailed beasts, as evidenced by Naruto practicing it once on Q and Arwen in their true forms. While both were pissed off, their thoughts derailed when they changed back into their human forms with the chains wrapped around them in an erotic way, and both ended up with nosebleeds, knocking them out with perverted thoughts. Next, Naruto began learning both the Rasengan and the Hiraishin. Even though he hated his father, he knew that the techniques the man created were amazing, and would be a boon to his ninjutsu arsenal. It took one day in the mindscape for Naruto with multiple Kage Bunshin to master all 3 steps of the Rasengan. However, he was upset that the Rasengan was an incomplete technique, but when Q told him that elements could be added to complete the Rasengan, Naruto immediately set to work. In 6 months, he managed to complete fire, water, wind, earth, and lightning Rasengans with different variations of each. In a year, he completed sub-elemental versions of the Rasengan, along with other non-elemental versions of the Rasengan. Then, he proceeded to learn the Uzumaki dojutsu, the Rinnegan. Naruto was surprised to learn that it was the most powerful dojutsu in the elemental countries, and it allowed Naruto to use all the stages of the Sharingan, the Hyuga clan's Byakugan, and the long-lost Jinnigan, or Mirage Ian, Rinmara's dojutsu from the filler. But for now, Naruto maximized his usage of the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu to quickly master all 7 paths of the Rinnegan. The end result got him bedridden in his mindscape for several weeks. Before Naruto could learn Hiraishin, he went to work on Fuinjutsu after he recovered. After 3 months of going through Namikaze style and Uzumaki style Fuinjutsu, he set to work on the Hiraishin. It took another year in his mindscape, but he successfully managed to create a Hiraishin that doesn't need a marker thanks to months of rewriting, tweaking, and modifying the Hiraishin seal. Right now, Naruto is currently finalizing his training with the chakra chains he inherited from his mother with the help of Yukikaze. He's already learning Genjutsu from Kurenai and Kenjutsu from Yugao. Senjutsu will come later from Q and Arwen. Hey Q, Arwen whispered. What is it, Arwen? Q grumbled. Do you really think Kushina would tolerate what the team's planning for Narumi and Tsubaki? And I'm wondering what crossed that idiot's mind when he came up with Project K, Arwen sighed, and to think that he's regarded as a genius. Even worse, to think he's a respected Hokage. Don't worry, when the time comes, Namikaze Minato will pay the full price and then some for conspiring against an Uzumaki, with his own body and soul. Arwen smirked. Heh, I look forward to it. With the rest of the family. After the conversation with Naruto and Naruhi, the Namikaze family was deep in thought. Minato tried his best to cheer up Kushina, Narumi and Tsubaki, all of whom were crying their eyes out because they thought that they had lost Naruto and Naruhi. After an hour or so of crying, they went to their rooms for some sleep for the big day tomorrow. In Kushina and Minato's room, Kushina's face and eyes were still red and puffy from the crying. She went to the restroom to wash her face, while Minato tried his best to make sure she was fine. After they were both clean and finished with the night routine, they laid in bed together and fell asleep. Both in their mind was how to make their estranged eldest children feel like part of the family and for them to learn their family styles. Though Kushina more than Minato thought so. As for Narumi and Tsubaki, they continued to cry in their own rooms. After a few minutes they had finally cried themselves out, and went to their personal bathrooms to wash their faces and do their personal nightly routines. During that time, their determination grew and both resolved to do everything they could to make it up to Naruto and Naruhi. Both of them got into bed and pulled the covers over them, letting sleep take hold for the night, both of them planning on ways to get their beloved brother and sister back. Naruto woke up feeling better than yesterday. He was still somewhat angry about last night, but it didn't matter. Today was the day he was going to go through with his escape plan. He walked over to his desk and pulled out a small scroll that had his escape plan written out. Today was his and Narumi's birthday, not to mention the anniversary of Kyuubi's defeat. Since today was a special day for Konoha, there was no school since everyone was preparing for the festival. That was the time when Naruto would make his escape. Everyone would be so drunk from the festival, plus Konoha security would be lax. However, there was only one problem with the plan, and that problem was certain members of his family. Apparently, they finally noticed him and were trying to get his and his older sister Naruhi's forgiveness. It wouldn't matter much since they would be too busy with Narumi's party to notice him anyways. Naruto sighed and sealed the scroll away on his body. Next, he picked up a sleeping Yukikaze and went to the restroom, where he splashed water on her, waking her up. She wasn't pleased, and she let Naruto know it. She spent the morning giving Naruto hell while he did his morning routine, with antics such as smearing toothpaste on his face and switching the warm water in the shower to cold water. Since everyone else in the house was still asleep, Naruto and Yukikaze quietly snuck out and went to the secret training grounds that Naruhi usually used for training. It might be his birthday, but that wouldn't stop him from training hard as was his daily practice. After an hour of training, Naruto left the grounds and headed back home. Back at Namikaze Estate, Narumi sprung herself out of bed, excited that today was her and Naruto's birthday. She made an immediate beeline for her parents' room. "Chu-san, Ka-san, wake up, it's our birthday," Narumi cheered, jumping on her parents' bed, waking them up and making them groan. "Narumi, calm down, will ya?" Minato began groggily, "Why don't you wake your brother and sisters up so we can all eat breakfast? Then we'll walk around the village and see the festival preparations, and visit the clan heads and your friends." Narumi nodded and ran to Tsubaki's room while Minato and Kushina got up, smiling at their daughter's antics. They both went into their bathroom to perform their usual morning hygienic rituals. After they freshened up, Kushina went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for the family, and Minato reviewed what he was going to teach Naruto and Naruhi. He decided to start them off with some of the minor things. After getting Tsubaki, Narumi and the latter ran through the halls and appeared in front of Naruto's room. However, both of them froze up when they got there as they realized that they'd never before set foot inside of Naruto's room. Narumi nervously knocked on his door instead, hoping Naruto would answer. "Oni-chan," Narumi called, knocking on her brother's door. She got no answer, so she knocked again, only to once more receive silence in response. She put her head against the walls to see if she could detect any noise, but heard nothing. Assuming that he wasn't there, and still scared to go into his room, Narumi and Tsubaki went to the kitchen where both Minato and Kushina were, Kushina noticing the sad looks on her youngest daughter's faces. "What's wrong, girls?" Tsubaki looked at her mother and replied, "Oni-chan isn't in his room." "Did you check his room?" Minato asked. "Well, we knocked and got no reply. I'm scared to go into his room." Narumi replied. "Me too," Tsubaki added. "Why are you scared?" "Well, we've never been inside his room before, and I'm scared that Oni-chan will get mad at us if we go in," Narumi explained apprehensively with Tsubaki nodding in agreement. Minato and Kushina were surprised. They realized that they had never been into Naruto's room either. They found themselves wondering what would be in there. They did notice that Naruto seemed to be in there all the time, so they assumed there was something in there for him to do, but they didn't remember getting him anything that would allow him to stay in his room all day. Minato felt somewhat ashamed at that fact, but Kushina felt a strong stab of guilt as she realized this. She couldn't ever remember getting Naruto anything, for any reason. She gasped quietly to herself when she realized that she hadn't even gotten him a birthday present. She didn't even have a clue as to what he might want. "How about we all go to Naruto's room, then? Would you like that, girls?" Kushina asked, to which Narumi and Tsubaki nodded enthusiastically. The four of them quickly went to Naruto's room and stopped at his bedroom door. Minato opened the door to his room, and Kushina and the girls followed him inside. All of them were stunned by what they saw. Naruto's room was plain, to the extreme that it could be called Spartan. The walls were white with no dirty marks on them. While his bed was neatly done, his room was very clean. Hell, it was even cleaner than Minato and Kushina's room. There wasn't a single piece of clothing lying around anywhere. His clothes were neatly folded and the dirty ones were in a basket at the side of his room. Minato and Kushina frowned at the lack of decoration on the walls. They looked around his room and noticed a bookcase filled with books. Romance novels, history books, fictional adventures, jutsu scrolls, even some volumes on sealing theory of all levels. There were all kinds of different books, most of which a 9-year-old would not have in their possession. Naruto can read these books. A surprised Minato wondered. Kushina, Narumi, and Tsubaki remained silent, as Kushina took a book out of the bookcase titled, History of Uzushiogakure. Uzushiogakure, Kushina whispered. She winced, as a rush of memories of her old homeland entered her mind. Narumi then noticed a slight flash on her mother's neck. She was about to ask that it was when she was interrupted by a knock on the door. They turned around and were surprised to see Naruto standing at the door to his room with his annoyed look and Yukikaze on his head. "Can I help you?" Naruto asked coolly. Kushina quickly snapped out of memory lane. Sorry Naruto. We wanted to tell you to come down and eat breakfast but you were gone. So we came to your room to check up on you, and we saw that you weren't here. Also, we wanted to tell you to get ready to visit the clan heads." Naruto nodded. "All right then, but if you don't mind, would you please leave so I can change?" The four Namakazes quickly left his room and went to Naruhi's room. Naruto closed the door and changed into some shinobi shoes, dark blue pants and a dark red t-shirt. When he was done getting ready, he finished off his outfit with an orange headband as Yukikaze wrapped herself around the back of his neck, and closed the door behind him, going downstairs to eat. Meanwhile, when the others entered Naruhi's room, they were even more shocked than they had been at the appearance of Naruto's room. Expecting to find an ordinary 12-year-old girl's room, Naruhi's room was anything but. The walls were painted blood red, and the carpet was completely black. Her bed was next to the window that led to her balcony, and a huge bookcase stood right next to her closet. In the middle of her room was a training dummy, and on the sides there were racks that held various weapons and a table full of tools. What shocked Minato and Kushina to the core was a symbol that they recognized from the history books. "Wow, what is all this?" Tsubaki stammered while Narumi looked around with amazed eyes. Before either Minato or Kushina could answer, the door to Naruhi's personal bathroom opened and out stepped Naruhi herself, who just got out of the shower and had a towel wrapped around her developing figure. Dyeing her hair with a towel, she looked up to find her parents and sisters in her room. "What the hell are you all doing in my room?" Naruhi asked angrily, not expecting her neglectful family members to be in her room. Well," Kushina started, "we were just looking for you to tell you to come downstairs and eat breakfast. We're all visiting the clan heads before Naruto and Narumi's party." "I see," Naruhi nodded, casting a quick glare at Minato before responding coldly and finishing with a raised voice, "Well, if you don't mind, can you all please get the hell out?" They all left quickly. Once they were out, Naruhi quickly changed into her civilian clothes, and joined Naruto. After they ate breakfast with their family, they left the house with them to walk around the village to see how the festival preparations were coming, and it seemed that they were almost done. They then went to the Hyuga's homes where they had been invited along with the rest of the clan heads and their families. At the Hyuga clan house, Hinata, Hisana, Hanabi, Satsuki, Akira, Ino, and Kyoko were all talking with each other. Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, and Shino were hanging around each other. Well, to be more exact, Shikamaru was sleeping while Choji was eating chips, Kiba was playing with his puppy Akamaru, and Shino was silent, talking to bugs. There was a knock on the door, and Hyuga Hiyashi, the Hyuga clan head, answered it to see Minato and Kushina with their children. They could tell that Narumi and Tsubaki couldn't wait to talk with their friends, and Naruto he had his nose in a book and was just talking with Naruhi, off behind the rest of the family. "Hello, Minato-san. Nice of you and your family to make it," Hiyashi greeted, who is a good friend of Minato. "Yo Hiyashi, how's it going?" Minato replied, looking around the house and noticed a certain arrogant clan head missing. "Where's the idiot Fugaku?" Hiyashi sighed. Fugaku said something about not having time for childish things like get-togethers. Hiyashi chuckled at his friend's attitude. After a quick greeting from the rest of the family, Minato and Kushina went to all of their friends to catch up. Kushina glanced back at her children and hoped that they were at least starting to get along. Naruhi just sighed and went over to talk to Itachi, Naruto following close behind her. Narumi, however, stopped Naruto, and looked at him with determination in her eyes. "Oni-chan, would you like to play with me and my friends?" Naruto looked at her like she was crazy and grumbled. Guess she had a memory recollection problem and forgot all about yesterday. He wanted to say no, but he saw Kushina looking at them, hoping that they might get along. An idea suddenly struck Naruto. If I pretend to forgive them, then they'll probably get off my back, which will make it easier for me to escape. Damn, I'm good. He looked at Narumi's still determined face and shrugged, sure, that would be nice. Tsubaki cheered at that and quickly dragged Naruto over to Hinata, Hasana, Hanabi, Satsuki, Akira, Ino, and Kyoko, as they were the only girls there because it was a clan head family get-together. As both Narumi and Naruto sat down, all the girls greeted Narumi, Tsubaki, and Naruto. To the two redheads' surprise, Naruto freely engaged in casual conversation with all the other girls, making the two of them wonder how they were all friends. Tsubaki also noticed that Hinata didn't stutter so much when talking with Naruto. After a while of just sitting there and listening in on this interesting development, Narumi and Tsubaki joined the conversation as they talked about Sakura's recent change in behavior. Meanwhile, the clan heads were walking and talking with each other and watching their children interact. Minato was currently talking with Hiyashi, Shikaku, Choza, and Inoichi, while Kushina was talking with the wives of the clan heads and Tsume, but she was paying most of her attention to Naruto. She was glad that Naruto was conversing with the girls. She originally thought that Naruto didn't have any friends and was lonely his whole life, which made her even more sad when she thought about it. While glad that he wasn't as alone as she thought he was, she thought again on just how precious little she truly knew about him, causing her to feel even greater regret at not heeding her maternal instincts instead of listening to Minato and that part of her that was a ninja first. As regret and anguish filled her mind, she rubbed the back of her neck, suddenly feeling a bit sore there. After 2 to 3 hours, it was noon, and time for the Namikaze family to leave so that they could prepare for the party and see the festival preparations. The Namikaze siblings finished talking with their friends and gathered with their parents. Naruto and Naruhi decided to just pretend that they enjoyed being around their family so as to keep them at a distance by not giving them an excuse to worry. During the walk in the village, everyone greeted the Hokage and his family while some secretly glared at Naruto, which he ignored while he started reading a new book and talking to her older sister. During the walk, Kushina and Minato noticed that Naruto and Naruhi were talking with Narumi and Tsubaki. It seems they forgive us, Kushina thought as they continued walking. This is great. I was worried that things wouldn't go smoothly for Project K, Minato thought to himself with some relief. After an hour, Minato decided that it was time to go home, so that they could prepare for the birthday party. When they entered the house, Kushina looked at her kids and said, "Why don't you four clean up and change for the party?" The four of them all nodded and went to their rooms. Kushina went to change and cook for the party, while Minato got the decorations ready. Luckily, he'd put some Hiraishin seals around the house, which allowed him to perform his task a lot faster. Due to the fact that she was in a giving mood, Naruhi decided to help out, but she took care to work away from Minato. Narumi and Tsubaki finished about an hour later, and went to Naruto's room only to find him sleeping, with his plush fox in his arms. Smiling, they went over to him and kissed him on each cheek. They then closed the door and went to the living room to help their dad with the decorations. Hours later, 6 p.m. It was time for the party to begin. The Namikaze house was filled with family and friends, both children and adults. The clan heads and their families were all there, as was Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage, and his family, and the Namikaze children's godparents, Jiraiya and Tsunade. Itachi, Kurenai, Anko, Yugao, Hana, and Shizune came by as well, but just for Naruto and Naruhi. Narumi and Tsubaki were currently talking with their friends. There were also some guys with them like Shikamaru, Kiba, Choji, and Shino. Narumi and Tsubaki, though, were not engaged in the conversation. Instead, they were looking around, trying to find Naruto. Earlier, when they finished helping their dad with the decorations, they waited for their brother to finish his nap. They waited for a while, but then the guests started coming and their friends quickly bombarded them. Naruto was standing in the corner away from the crowd where no one could see him, his nose once again in a book while Yukikaze read along with him on his shoulder. While reading, he was also observing the party, watching everyone closely and paying attention to how the party was progressing, so that he would know the right time to make his exit. About an hour had passed and he finished eating dinner, yet he still observed the party with a keen eye. His patience paid off as he smirked when they started to take out the alcohol. Excellent. Now all I have to do is wait until they're all drunk, he thought to himself. At this point, Naruhi went over to Naruto. Are you sure you're gonna go through with this? She asked with serious eyes, her voice filled with slight apprehension and some sadness. Yes, Naruhi knew that Naruto was planning to leave Konoha, since Naruto himself told her. And she couldn't blame him, not without the hell he suffered. But she would still miss him terribly, and wished she could go with him. Yeah, Naruto nodded. You'll have to say goodbye to the others. They'll miss you. I wrote each of them an individual letter. Naruto said, giving said letters to Naruhi. Can you deliver them for me? Naruhi went through them and frowned. There isn't one for Sakura, but I understand, given her current odd state. I'll give them to the others once you're safely away from here. Thank you, Nei-san. Naruto said, hugging his sister. Just be careful, my precious little brother, and you too, Yukikaze-chan, she said, petting Yukikaze and leaving a lingering kiss on Naruto's cheek, causing Naruto to blush slightly and smile warmly at her. 30 minutes later, most of the adults were drunk, including Minato, though he wasn't as drunk as the others. Damn, Naruto thought, still, better than nothing, I guess. Despite this, Naruto knew it was time for him to get the hell out of there, due to Naruhi winking at him. He got up to go to his room until a form in front of him stopped him. He looked up to see Itachi. Yo, Itachi-san, greeted Naruto. Hello Naruto, where are you going? Itachi asked. Just to my room. I'm a little tired, so I need some rest. Itachi raised an eyebrow. This early? Yeah. Itachi only nodded and pulled a small box out of his pocket and gave it to Naruto. Your birthday present. Itachi said. Naruto took the box thanking Itachi and opened it. Inside were 3 scrolls. Confused, Naruto looked at Itachi, asking, what is this? A couple of Kaden jutsus I managed to copy from the Uchiha clan from me, some sword techniques from Yugao, and some unknown ones from your sister. Just don't tell anyone, Itachi muttered to him. Naruto smiled. Itachi was like a brother to him and also a teacher. He thanked Itachi, gave him a hug and excused himself to go to his room. In his room, he got his things ready and checked to make sure he had everything he needed. In his backpack, he has a few storage scrolls holding food, cooking materials, and basic wilderness survival necessities. He also brought kunais and shuriken for protection, and several extra sets of clothes. Lastly were the scrolls that he received from Itachi, Yugao, and Naruhi, along with the books in his room. He packed his things and put on his backpack and on his shoes, opened the window and looked at his room once more before he would leave. He dug in his pocket and pulled out a picture of him and his family. He took out a kunai, sliced the picture in half, and threw it on the floor of his former room. Let's go, Yuki-chan. Hi, Naruto-sama, Yukikaze said, hopping into the hood of Naruto's hoodie and making herself at home. With that, he and his partner left. He was lucky the gate was opened for incoming people that might be late to the party. He snuck past a couple of drunken people and exited the gate. In the village, Naruto could see many people still celebrating, children playing festival games, while the mothers watched over them or talked to their friends. The men were mostly drunk from all the free sake being passed around. Using an invisibility jutsu taught by Arwen, Naruto went through the festival, making sure no one saw him. He groaned inwardly at the fact that the house was on the opposite side of the village from the main gate, so it was going to take him a while to reach the main gate. The other gates were closed for the ceremony to make sure that if there was an attack, they would have to come through the main gate, and this was the one detail that Naruto had not taken into account when he'd written up his escape plan. It took him about 30 minutes just to get through the festival crowd in the main square unnoticed, and that was only the beginning. He found that he had to take some of the longer routes due to the Anbu patrols on his contingency escape route. He allowed himself an excited grin when he saw the main gate just 20 yards off. Using his own advanced Hiraishin, he sped through the main gate, quickly putting in the password for the barrier around the village. So long, Konoha Stinksville. Hello freedom, Datadeo. Woo. Uzumaki Namikaze house, 1 hour after Naruto left. Meanwhile, the party was still in full force, and doesn't seem to be getting smaller or tiring down. If anything, it seems to be getting wilder. There was karaoke coming from the living room, with many more drunken adults singing, and the children were running all over the house. Minato, who was slightly drunk since he didn't drink much, managed to quiet everyone down for one of the usual main events for Narumi's birthday party. Now then, it is time for Narumi to open her presents, Minato announced, getting everyone to quiet down. Narumi smiled in happiness. For a while now she has been upset because she hasn't found Naruto or Naruhi anywhere. But the mention of presents brought her out of her funk. The only thing on her mind at the moment was her presents. She opened her presents, which consisted of clothes, toys, and other things from her friends and the clan heads. Her mother had gotten her a wooden katana and said that she will be teaching her in the family kenjutsu style, which made Narumi very happy. Minato gave her some of his special kunais and said he was going to start preparing her for the more advanced material of his training. Makoto, who was watching the gift opening, frowned. Since the party started, she'd been looking for Naruto. She had help from Hinata, Hisana, Hanabi, Ino, Hyoko, Akira, and Tenten, but they had all failed to find him. She wanted to give Naruto a couple of presents of her own, a fox costume and a black trench coat. She thought the former would look really cute on Naruto, while the latter would make him look cooler. She asked Itachi to help her find him, which he did. When Itachi came back, she asked him where Naruto was, and he told her that he was sleeping in his room. Not wanting to disturb him, she decided that she would give Naruto his presents once Narumi finished opening hers and the party started back up once again. Once Narumi had finished opening all her presents, Jiraiya walked up to Narumi with a giant scroll. Many people were wide-eyed, knowing what the scroll was. Tsunade, though, was fuming when she saw the scroll. She wanted to give Narumi the summoning contract for the slugs, but apparently Jiraiya managed to beat her to it. Guess she'll give slug summoning contract to Tsubaki on her birthday when she gets the chance. Narumi, I want to give you the toad summoning contact, Jiraiya said proudly. Narumi's eyes widened. She had always wanted to be able to summon toads like her father. She jumped in glee, making Jiraiya chuckle while everyone laughed. Now sign here with your blood, Jiraiya instructed, pointing to the blank space next to Minato's name. Narumi bit her thumb so blood could come out, but before she could write her name, a sudden question from Tsubaki made her stop. Where's Naruto Oni-chan? Everyone stopped what he or she was doing and looked around confused. They had apparently all forgotten about Minato and Kushina's second child, due to the fact that the blonde boy with whisker marks was always so quiet and inconspicuous. Minato and Kushina were a little worried because they hadn't seen Naruto during the party either, and they hoped that he was okay. Kurenai, Yugao, Anko, Hana, and Shizune were also worried for their surrogate little brother. Don't worry about Naruto. He went to his room to sleep, Minato said, whom Itachi had just informed. Everyone nodded, but Narumi was not happy and shook her head. No, she protested, I want to sign this with Oni-chan. I won't sign it unless he does too. Minato was about to tell her to forget about him due to the fact he was asleep, but Makoto sighed loudly. I'll go get him for you, she said, smiling. I'll come with you, Hinata said, with Satsuki nodding. Makoto nodded and she, Hinata, and Satsuki, went upstairs to get Naruto. Not only that, but to give Naruto their presents, and maybe get to see how cute Naruto's sleeping form would look like, so they can tease him about it later. When they reached Naruto's room, Makoto pressed her ears against the door to hear if Naruto made any sound while he slept. Wow, Naruto-kun is a silent sleeper, Makoto thought to herself when she heard nothing, unlike her husband Fugaku, who snored really loudly, and often grumbled in his sleep, muttering such nonsense as, "Uchiha are the best," and whatnot. A flash of annoyance crossed Makoto's beautiful features as she was reminded of Fugaku's arrogance. She just as quickly put her annoyance aside as she opened Naruto's bedroom door quietly, looking around the room. The only light in the room was from the shine of the moon through his window. She found the light switch and quickly flipped it. She looked around the now lit room and was shocked to see that not only was Naruto not sleeping, but wasn't even there. She then proceeded to the most logical conclusion that he was likely in the bathroom or something, so she waited, thinking that she might as well give Naruto his present now, since it seemed he was awake. While waiting, Satsuki and Hinata looked around his room and the latter saw the basket holding Naruto's dirty laundry. When Hinata looked inside, she saw a piece of paper slightly hanging out of one of Naruto's pants pockets. Curious, she pulled the paper out and read it. She gasped, dropping the present that she'd brought Naruto, and started to sob. Makoto and Satsuki came over to see what was wrong and they too gasped. They quickly ran out of the room and back to the party, the Uchiha matriarch looking for Kushina and Minato, finding them talking with some of the clan heads. Minato and Kushina saw Makoto coming up into the group slightly panting with fear, worry, and anger written all over her face. "What's wrong, Makoto?" Minato asked. "It's Naruto," Makoto panted, but didn't get to finish. "What about Naruto?" Kushina interrupted, concerned. "Naruto is leaving the village." Makoto screamed loudly, making the whole party stop. "What do you mean, leaving the village?" Minato asked loudly. "I went to Naruto's room with Satsuki-chan and Hinata to give him our presents. We didn't find Naruto sleeping. Instead, Hinata found this sheet of paper hanging out of one of Naruto's pants." Makoto explained, giving both Kushina the sheet of paper Hinata found. Minato and Kushina quickly took it and read what it said, their eyes widened when they finished. Kushina broke down crying. "He didn't forgive us," she said while sobbing. "Of course, he didn't. Honestly, what made you think he would?" Naruhi thought, smirking. Narumi and Tsubaki, who heard what Makoto said, went up to their parents, hoping what they heard was false. "To-san, is Oni-san really gone?" Narumi asked nervously. Minato looked into both his daughter's eyes and saw fear that what they heard was true. Minato didn't want to answer so he turned away. Narumi and Tsubaki, seeing their father's reaction, now understood what happened, and broke down crying. Minato himself was silently fuming. What the hell was that boy thinking? Minato couldn't go through with his plans without Naruto, and if he couldn't go through with his plans, no. He wouldn't even consider that possibility right now. He had to get Naruto back at all costs. "Anbu!" Minato shouted. In an instant, the Anbu appeared in front of Minato, kneeling. "What is it, Hokage-sama?" asked an Anbu wearing a bear mask. "Find my son Naruto, and make sure he doesn't reach the main gate." "Why, Hokage-sama?" "Because Naruto is planning on leaving Konoha, and I will not lose my only son." Minato snapped, getting angry that the Anbu had not left yet. The Anbu quickly left, doing what they were told. Minato himself was preparing to leave when he was stopped by a couple of Jonin, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and the clan heads, excluding Fugaku, who thought that the demon brat should just leave, which got a glare from Kushina, while inwardly she was confused. Demon brat? Naruto isn't a demon. Minutes later, everyone was ready, including Kushina. "What are you doing, Kushina?" Minato asked. "Helping to look for Naruto, what else?" she said, annoyed, wondering why they hadn't left yet, and Minato questioning something like this. "No, you can't. You have to stay and watch the children. Don't worry, I will bring Naruto back." With that, Minato left, leaving an angry Kushina before she could say anything. Makoto, who was still there despite her husband's leaving, went up to her longtime friend before her temper flared to dangerous levels. "Go find Naruto. I'll stay and watch the kids," she told Kushina. "Thank you," Makoto-chan, Kushina said, smiling, and left. You better bring Naruto back, you baka. Makoto shouted so Kushina could hear. I will, replied Kushina. With that she disappeared via Shunshin. She knew that Naruto was the true child of prophecy, and there was no way she was going to allow him to be chained to Konoha, especially due to the plans Minato had for him for his Project K. Outside Konoha, Naruto was jumping from tree branch to tree branch, inching ever closer to Konoha's borders. Almost there, Naruto muttered with relief. Still, you shouldn't relax yet, Naruto-kun. You're still in Konoha territory. Q told Naruto. Q was right. Even though he was right outside of Konoha, it didn't mean he should relax, since he was still in Konoha territory. He inwardly nodded to Q, but noticed that when she talked she sounded a little weary and tired. He was about to ask Arwen what was wrong with her, but felt several chakra signals that brought him out of his current thoughts. Naruto-sama, Yukikaze squeaked, there's an awful lot of energy signatures sweeping the area. Damn it, he cursed, when he also fully sensed them, that they were all Jonin to Anbu level shinobi. You gotta be kidding me. He thought, I never expected for them to catch up to me that fast. How odd, Arwen noted, finding it odd that Anbu have managed to catch up with them, especially with the distance Naruto covered. Unless some of them are not Anbu at all. Root maybe. You'd better lay low for now, Arwen instructed. Naruto quickly hid himself behind a tree and tried his best to conceal his chakra, hoping no one could sense him. After waiting for a while he saw a few root operatives disguised as Jonin pass by him. When there was no one left, he left his hiding spot and began running again, only to stop when he noticed about 4 people waiting in front of him. Oh, fuckberries. In front of him stood Kakashi, Jiraiya, Itachi, and Yugao. Naruto stopped a few yards away from them, staring at them with impassive eyes. Naruto, you need to come home, Jiraiya said, making Naruto glare at him and Kakashi. They were 2 people he didn't really care for, since they were both somehow related to his father, one being his teacher, the other being his student. But both were both strong, and that was something he respected about them, if only a little. Please enlighten me on why the hell I would even want to do that. Naruto asked him, discreetly charging up his chakra. Because your father, mother and sisters want you back home, Jiraiya responded. Sensei, Kushina-ne-san, Narumi-chan, and Tsubaki-chan want you home so you all can be a family again, Kakashi added, jumping into the conversation hoping to change Naruto's mind about leaving. You can't beat the 4 of us alone, kid. When you come back, we'll give you all the training you want, so please, Jiraiya said. He frowned when Naruto's face didn't lighten up, if anything he was getting a little pissed as he felt more chakra signals. Naruto mentally cursed himself. He didn't want his plan to fail. No, he will not allow his plan to fail. He had to think of something, anything, fast. No choice. He'll have to take them out. Quickly. You say that they want me back so we can be a family, again. Since when was I ever considered family to them to start with? I was never family to them. I was neglected and ignored, and for what? Just because Narumi and Tsubaki contained Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto snapped. But Naruto, it's for everyone's good. Jiraiya protested, your sisters need the training, especially since one of them is the child of prophecy. Naruto raised an eyebrow, the child born with marks of Kami, Yami, and Shinigami on their body, right? Has the power to lead the world to salvation or ruin. That child of prophecy, how do you know that? Jiraiya asked, alarmed that Naruto knew. He finished charging chakra, and released it in a huge burst. Kakashi and Jiraiya used chakra to stick their feet to the ground in order not to get blown away. When the dust settled, they were shocked to see Naruto with his back turned to him, the symbols of Kami on his left bicep, Yami on his right, and Shinigami on his back shining through his clothes. I'm the child of prophecy, and you better get used to it. Let's go, Yuki-chan. Chakra concentration. Yukikaze hopped out and growled at Naruto's opponents, while her master whipped around and got into a stance with his arms crossed in an X formation with blue, red, and silver chakra spinning around him like a whirlpool. Gravity Seal Level 5, Kai. Resistance Seal Level 5, Kai. Naruto yelled, making both Kakashi and Jiraiya's eyes widen. Naruto knows Fuinjutsu. They both thought in shock, and what's with that fox? Yukikaze noticed the shocked looks and used it as a cue to rush Jiraiya and Kakashi, flame materializing on her body while Naruto summoned a Kage Bunshin in the process. Kakashi and Jiraiya, who were still shocked, snapped out of it and dodged Yukikaze's Firefox rush attack, but were intercepted by Naruto and his Kage Bunshin. Kakashi was quickly neutralized by Shadow Clone Naruto with a few hard-hitting rapid Jiyuken strikes he learned from seeing a couple of Hyugas in action during the Hyuga incident involving Kumo, before flooring him with a Goken strike to the head. Meanwhile, the real Naruto disappeared, leaving a flash of crimson before reappearing in front of a shocked Jiraiya with an orb of spiraling chakra in his hand. Odama Hiraishin Rasengan! Naruto roared, driving the orb into Jiraiya's gut. The Rasengan then exploded, bouncing Jiraiya off a huge tree before he landed on the ground in a heap. That's what happens when you leave a child alone, Naruto taunted before dispelling his Kage Bunshin, picking up Yukikaze, and making a run for it, shocking the two dazed shinobi with his speed. Man, he's fast, they both thought. His speed has to be high Junin, low Anbu level. See ya suckers, Naruto shouted and continued to run into the forest. We can't let him get away. Konoha needs that power, Jiraiya shouted, but Naruto was too fast and he was already long gone. Then, Jiraiya and Kakashi felt a strike to the back of their necks, knocking them out. In a matter of seconds, Naruto left behind Jiraiya and Kakashi, but he went off-road so it would be harder for them to find him. While running, he felt like he was forgetting something, or someone. When he remembered, he cursed to himself, because the people he forgot about were standing in front of him again, Itachi and Yugao. Ah crap. During the interaction between Naruto and the two shinobi, Itachi and Yugao stood behind watching Naruto, and quietly backed away. Impressed that Naruto disabled the two and made a break for it, they followed him and hid their chakra to sneak in front of Naruto. Now they stood in front of Naruto with conflicted feelings. Truthfully, they hated the villagers for beating Naruto, someone they both saw as a younger brother as well. Even though Itachi had Sasuke and Satsuki, the former was like his father, someone he disliked greatly. He knew that the marriage between his parents was arranged, but would it kill him to show some affection to his wife? He barely talked to her and would treat her like a toy, or a housemaid. It was a wonder Makoto hadn't snapped yet. Also, there was the way Fugaku interacted with people. If they weren't an Uchiha, he would think lowly of them. The Uchiha clan may well have been famous for the Sharingan, but it wasn't the strongest dojutsu out there, and it had its share of drawbacks, too. He, along with Satsuki, tried to change Sasuke, but he had adapted to his father's personality and remained unchanging. Itachi ni, Yugao ne, please let me go, Naruto pleaded, not wanting to fight his sibling figures. Itachi and Yugao looked into Naruto's eyes. Even though both were Konoha shinobi and had to follow the orders of the Hokage, they didn't want to see Naruto suffer any longer at his father's hand, whether directly or indirectly. They wanted him to live and get stronger. Making their choice, they decided to let him pass, but not without making sure he could protect and care for himself. But how will you survive? Yugao asked him, concerned. It's really dangerous outside the village. I've read a shit ton of books on survival with help from Enkone. Just pray for the poor bastard who tries to attack yours truly. I mean, I did nick you both a few times during our spars, remember? Naruto replied. Itachi raised an eyebrow at Naruto's choice of words while Yugao blushed a bit. They sighed, remembering the times Naruto did hit them when they weren't holding back. They looked into Naruto's eyes again and saw that he wouldn't change his mind. Itachi reached into his pocket and pulled out some tri-prong kunais. Naruto immediately recognized them as Hiraishin kunais and tensed up a bit. Use these if you find yourself in serious trouble, Itachi instructed seriously. They're rigged so that only Naruto will respond. Naruto sighed and reluctantly took the kunais, putting them in his pocket. Thank you, Itachi ni, Yugao ne, Naruto said as he gave Itachi and Yugao a hug, which they returned. Now go, Naruto, before the others find you, Itachi said. And we'll send your girlfriends your regards, Yugao teased. Naruto sputtered at Yugao's teasing, but nodded and dashed off. Minutes later, Kakashi and Jiraiya came by, looking worse for wear. Itachi, Yugao, did you see Naruto? Jiraiya wheezed out. No, I think he went the other way. We need to hurry before we lose him, Itachi said, pointing in a different direction. Kakashi and Jiraiya nodded and all four of them left. Naruto himself was glad that Itachi and Yugao let him go. He might have been young, but he knew how to defend himself thanks to Q and Arwen. He could give low-level to mid-level Junin a run for their money. He made a mental note that he owed Itachi later on in the future. If only all the Uchiha were like Itachi-san, Makoto-san, and Satsuki-san, right Naruto-sama? Yukikaze said. They're the only healthy leaves on a rotten tree, along with the branch side of their clan, Naruto agreed. However, just when he was slowing down at the border a few minutes later. Oh shit, Naruto-kun, incoming, Q yelled, recognizing the sudden incoming chakra signature. Before Naruto could react, a red blur passed by him and stopped a few feet in front of him, making him skid to a halt and glare at the person in front of him blocking his few steps to freedom. It was his mother, Uzumaki Namikaze Kushina. She wore her battle gear, but without her special katana since she had to rush. How Kushina found Naruto was rather difficult. When she started looking, she thought that he was probably in the forest of Hi-no-Kuni, fire country already, so she dashed her way to the forest. When she got there, she started looking and ran into Itachi and Yugao. She asked them if they had found Naruto, which they answered no, and they went their separate ways. It was only luck that she found him, because she heard faint footsteps that sounded like running. She followed the sound and shortly afterwards, she found her son. Naruto, why are you leaving? Is it because of us? If so, then we will make it up to you. Kushina cried, hoping to change Naruto's mind. I'm sorry, but did you say you'll make it up to me? Please, you had your chance years ago. I've even tried to become a part of the family by suggesting we go to different places that you and Dad liked, but what happened? Oh, that's right, my suggestions were overruled by Narumi and Tsubaki every single time. Naruto yelled, his anger getting the best of him. He wasn't done yet, he was far from done. He reasoned that since he was leaving anyway, he might as well tell her exactly how he felt. He certainly didn't see the harm in it, as he didn't think she'd really care, anyway. The following fight scene is similar to the fight between Leon and Chris in Resident Evil 6. But he never got the chance to start, as a black blur appeared behind Kushina and tackled her to the ground. A look of surprise registered on Naruto's face as Kushina quickly got up to counter the robed female who attacked her. Kushina threw a punch, but her attacker sidestepped it and tried to kick her in the face. Kushina ducked and grabbed her attacker, trying to knee her in the stomach, but the attacker blocked and hit Kushina with a back elbow to the head. She tried follow-up with a spinning back fist, but Kushina rushed forward, trying to take her down, but the attacker countered by driving her knee to the ground to avoid falling, allowing Kushina to get behind her to rip off the attacker's hood, her face now full of blonde hair with red tips. Before Kushina could gasp, recognizing her attacker, the blonde female whipped around, wrapped her arm by the side of Kushina's neck and arm, and lifted her up, slamming her to the ground back first. Switching to a sitting position, the blonde wrapped her arms around the head and left arm of Kushina and squeezed, applying pressure so that Kushina can't move without choking herself. You like it, Ka-san? The blonde snarled. This choke is called the Anaconda's Vice, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu and judo compression chokehold that came from the western lands that won me the preliminaries that got me in the Chunin exam finals. But of course, you and my dear father wouldn't even know anything about that due to that vacation you all took on the same fucking day. Nah Naruhi, Kushina wheezed out. Nei-san, asked a shocked Naruto. Naruto, get out of here. You have somewhere to be, don't you? Naruhi shouted, struggling to keep her mother in the hold. What about you? Naruto asked. I'll be fine, little brother. Naruhi assured him, I became a chunin early after all. And considering the conspiracy that's going on, training in Konoha is not in your best interest. Now go, and remember that my heart goes with you. Naruto was stunned, but turned around and smiled. Thank you, Nei-san. Goodbye, mother. Naruto used this top speed to get away, and will not be heard from Konoha for many years. 5 minutes later, when Naruhi was sure Naruto was far enough with his speed, she quickly let go of her mother and jumped away to the direction Naruto went, blocking the way and drawing her sword as Kushina got up shakily to her feet. Naruhi, why? Kushina cried, unable to believe that her eldest daughter let her only son leave. Why not? Naruto and I always did anything we could to become a part of your family, but every single time, you ignored us, always choosing Narumi and Tsubaki over us unfairly. We stopped trying because we both knew it was nothing more than an exercise in futility. Naruhi snapped, making Kushina even more upset than before. But that doesn't mean he should leave. Kushina cried, we can make it up to the two of you. Can you? All the years of parental affection that you stole from us. Can you give them back? Well, can you? All those horrible years of abandonment by you, and for what? For Narumi and Tsubaki, just because they possess the power of the Kyuubi between them. But they had to be trained to control the Kyuubi's power because Minato-kun said so, and he knows what is best. Kushina protested, making Naruhi furious. What made her even more furious was that her mother mentioned her father's dirtbag with that affectionate title. So what? That didn't mean you had to neglect Naruto and me. You could have always given us books on chakra or maybe anything basic. Did you do that? No, you just shooed us both away like we're some annoying, fucking flies, and ordered us to go to our rooms, telling us we'll be trained when we're ready. Well, guess what? Look at me. I graduated from the academy when I was 7. I won the Chunin exam finals when I was 9. And with the secret training Naruto's been going through, he may as well be a Chunin level shinobi as well, hell, he might even be Junin level. All without any training or guidance from you. Kushina's heart broke when she heard her eldest daughter's rant. She couldn't even begin to understand what Naruhi's been through without the support from her family. And another thing. Don't talk about that evil fucking bastard Namikaze Minato in front of me. Naruhi shrieked, stamping her foot on the ground in anger. Hey, don't talk about your father like that. Kushina yelled. The bastard isn't my loving father, more like an overconfident and arrogant dumbass. If he was so great like everyone claimed, then he should have known that it would be impossible for Narumi and Tsubaki to control the two halves of the Kyuubi's chakra by themselves. What do you mean impossible? Kushina asked, confused. You were a Jinchuriki, yourself, so you should know. Without the tranquil soul, all that power is just a mass of destruction and bloodlust that'll lead to madness. Narumi and Tsubaki can't control that, and they'll never be able to without the soul. For both of them to control the power, they need to be connected by the Kyuubi's soul, which, oh, that's right, just so happens to be sealed inside Naruto. The soul and power must coexist with each other like yin and yang, light and dark, day and night. How else do you think you were able to control Kyuubi's power? Kushina took a step back, floored by her daughter's intellect. How do you know all this? It doesn't matter. At least my little brother managed to leave that retarded village. Don't talk about your home like that. Naruto wouldn't think that. Ha, let's agree to disagree. Because that place was never home to Naruto. It was more like fucking hell for him. Naruhi shouted, shocking Kushina. How? Kushina asked, wondering what her daughter meant. What do you mean? You know how, baka. No, I don't, Kushina cried, while feeling a sharp pain in the back of her neck. Really, now? So you can't tell with your own two working 20/20 vision eyes, that Naruto gets beaten almost every other day of his life. Naruhi roared, shocking Kushina to her core. Naruto was getting beat up. By who? For what reason? Who's been doing this to him? She whispered, while trying to ignore the growing pain in her neck. Naruhi was getting irritated. What did she mean? Who did it to him? How could she possibly not know the answer? You should know who did, so why ask, mother? No, I don't, Kushina answered as she was starting to grunt in pain. You mean to tell me that you don't know a bunch of villagers beat Naruto up, unprovoked? What? Why would they do that? That's because they think he's the Kyuubi in human skin. They think he's what? Kushina thought to herself, remembering what Fugaku called him when Makoto delivered the news that Naruto was gone. Why would they think he's Kyuubi? Are you fucking kidding me? You really don't know. Because he holds Kyuubi's soul. They think that Kyuubi influences him. So they think he's the Kyuubi, and they beat him up. All for their so-called vengeance. And every time, me, Itachi-kun, Yugao-chan, Kurenai-chan, Enko-chan, Hana-chan, Shizune-chan, Gemma, and Gemma save him, we have to haul a mob to Ibiki-san to get them to stop, but they never do. Naruhi stopped to take a deep breath, her beautiful face red with anger, while Kushina on the other hand, was taking this in slowly, her eyes swelling up with tears coming out. And you want to know what the best part is? Naruhi said, digging into her pockets, preparing to drop the pipe bomb. Kushina looked up at her, terrified at what it might be. That bastard Minato allowed them to beat him up, letting them use him as a scapegoat for their pain and loss from the Kyuubi's attack. Naruhi revealed, as she threw the cold hard evidence that were the prisoner release forms at Kushina's feet. Naruhi knew of Minato's involvement. It didn't really take a genius to figure it out. When Naruhi rescued Naruto from the mobs, she remembered seeing the constant familiar faces during the beatings. She didn't need to sneak into the Hokage's office to find out that the fool let the offenders free from prison, clear of charges. But she did need to sneak into his office to collect the evidence to show her brother and the others. Kushina froze when she saw the approved release papers with her husband's signature and his seal on them. She didn't know what to believe. She had trusted her husband, believing that he always knew what to do. But after seeing what Naruhi brought and what she told her, she didn't know anymore. Right now, I cannot forget and forgive what happened to my precious little brother. And the pain is too much for him. Even if he's an Uzumaki like us, it's a miracle he can even handle it, Naruhi said, clenching her fists. I was there for him, like a true Uzumaki. We Uzumaki never abandon our own, but where were you, Uzumaki Namikaze Kushina? Were you really born in Uzushiogakure into the Uzumaki clan? Are you really, a true Uzumaki, like Uzumaki Mito-sama, the first Jinchuriki of Kyuubi? As Kushina picked up a release form, she started thinking about what had happened to Naruto. She was thinking about everything Naruto had done when he was with his family. She started having flashbacks of all the events with Naruto coming into the house all bloody and bruised. She remembered the times when Naruto and Naruhi would suggest things, only for Narumi to say something else, and how Minato along with her would do what Narumi wanted, with the exception of Tsubaki, who sometimes wanted to go to the places Naruto and Naruhi mentioned. She remembered the times when Naruhi and Naruto asked to be trained only for Minato and her to tell them to go to their rooms. Going through these flashbacks, she felt like an idiot, like a fangirl. After Minato had saved the village from the Kyuubi attack, he was seen as a hero. It solidified in Kushina's mind that Minato was the strongest shinobi ever, further making her like a fangirl, never questioning anything he said or did, and believing blindly that the man was without fault in speech and deed. Now, she didn't know what to think, but she wanted to believe what Naruhi said wasn't true, about the beatings, about Minato. She wanted all of it to be a lie. No, it can't be true. It just can't be true. Naruto's his son. He would never. Why Minato-kun? Why would you make me abandon Naruto and Naruhi? I would have never. Minato Kushina screamed in agony as she fell to her knees, holding the back of her neck in extreme pain, making Naruhi jump back in shock. What was wrong with her mother? Putting away her sword, Naruhi strode over to her now thrashing mother, summoning a few shadow clones to restrain her while she examined her. After a few seconds, she noticed a glow on the back of her neck. She moved her hair to the side to discover a seal, and not just any seal, Naruhi noted in fury, a loyalty seal. Why is this on? It can't be. Seal examination jutsu. She put her index and middle fingers on the seal, scanning it to get its statistics and information. What she learned infuriated her. Namikaze Minato, Naruhi growled, to think his attempted control of the Uzumakis would go this far. Naruhi then had to summon another shadow clone to hold her mother in place in order to examine the seal further. It's been placed on her since her days as a genin, and it looks like it's been reinforced every year. Upon close observation, it has a few cracks on it, so I can destroy it. While Naruhi set to work destroying the seal, she put a few missing pieces of the puzzle together in her head. To think my father planned this during his days as a genin. There's no way he's been acting alone. But why? Naruhi shook her head as she completely shattered the loyalty seal. No matter. His death warrant's already signed. As Naruhi picked up her mother's bridal style, Kushina gasped and felt herself in her daughter's arms, the pain in the back of her neck gone. Remembering what happened with Naruto and her conversation with Naruhi, Kushina broke down crying, burying her face in her daughter's neck, apologizing over and over. Feeling her mother's tears sliding down her skin, Naruhi knew that with her mother's mind clear, it was time to bring Project K to light with her mother and sisters. She would protect her family, her and Naruto's family. She would hold down the fort until Naruto returned to them. Western Lands, unknown location, 1 week later. Took you long enough, Naruto-kun. What can I say? The wall's huge. Naruto and Yukikaze were standing in a training ground in front of Kami, Yami, and Shinigami, who were awaiting his arrival. Behind them were 20 unique individuals who were not from around the elemental countries, sitting, standing, or lounging around on the ground talking, laughing, and arguing with each other. Meet your teachers for the next 5 years, Naruto-kun. Kami said, gesturing to them, but first, meet our fellow Celestial who'll contact you for missions in the future, Inari, the Lord of Foxes. Naruto turned to see a figure walk up to him. He has spiky, neon orange hair, bright, orange slit eyes, feral whisker marks on his cheeks, an average but strong build, and wearing a black sleeveless shirt, an orange hakama, and no footwear. He also has black goggles on his head and a long katana strapped to his wrist. Yukikaze paled and bowed low to the ground. Rise little kit. Hey kid. Inari greeted with a feral smile. I heard from my friends that you had quite the willpower to get through the wild ride. That's your life. You could say that, Inari-san. Naruto said slowly, while Q chided him, telling Naruto to be a bit more respectful towards the Lord of Foxes while Yukikaze jumped and gnawed on Naruto's head comically. Inari smirked. Well then, I guess it's time to put that willpower the girl's been boasting about to the test then. So, welcome to hell. Yami and Shinigami said, giving a dark smile. Naruto could only pray to get out of this in one piece.